Let's talk about MapReduce script type. Let's take a simple example. So here I have a table which has a movie name rated by a specific users and the rating provided by those users. So my expected output would be something like this. With rating 10, I have around one record. With rating 9, I would have around two records. With rating 8, I would have around one record. So let's say I'm going to write a normal script which is going to start and going to get all the datas where I have to loop through each and every single time for each and every records. So I'm going to loop through around 4 times for all this 4 data, and I'm going to gather the rating. Let's say I have the rating of 10. So I'm going to make this as a unique rating, and I'm going to start counting on the records which I have. So in the same way for each record, this is going to happen. And finally, once I'm done, my expected output would look something like this. So with rating 10, I would have around count of 1, and goes like with rating 9, I would have around count of 2. So this is how the script goes and finally ends. But this script is gonna run kind of a sequential process. It has to loop through each and every single record, find the rating and make this as a unique and start counting, right? But what if I have millions of records? It's gonna take more number of time to do the logic. What if you add more number of logics or operations which you want to perform on those data? So it's going to take huge time, right? And it's going to be a sequential process, one record at a time, and then it's going to the next record, and it's going to complete the script finally. So is there any way where I can run this records or process this records parallelly and then complete this whole logic as fast as possible? Yes, there is one design pattern called as a MapReduce design pattern. So in MapReduce, we have around different stages. So one of the stages is the map, and the next stage is reduce. So in between map and reduce, there is another stage called as shuffle. And whenever we write some kind of script or a suite script in NetSuite for this map reduce, we don't have access to this shuffle. Another stage which we have is input, and the final stage we have is output. So let's see by taking a scenario of same movie ratings, and we'll see how all these stages works together and generates the output. So let's start with our first stage, which is input stage. So I'm going to pass this movie data as an input for my map stage. So let's say, for example, in this case, I'm going to pass one of the movie name, which is Lion King, as an input for my map stage. So here I'm going to write some key value pairs where the key is going to be the rating, and the value is going to be 1, where I'm going to default the value as 1 always. So here, if you clearly notice, the rating of this movie has been set as key, and the value I have defaulted it to 1. So in the same way, I'm going to perform it for all the remaining records. And if you clearly notice, I have keys with 10 and also key with 9 as well, and also one key with 8. So this is some kind of output from my map stage. So now the output from my map stage, which is my key value pairs, is going to be an input for my shuffle stage. So in my shuffle stage, let's say I'm going to pass one of the key value pair. Let's say I'm going to pass the key 8 to my shuffle stage, and you can see the value is still 1. So if I'm going to pass the next key, which is 9, and if you clearly notice, the value is like 1 comma 1 now, because the reason is the shuffle stage is going to perform some kind of grouping on the key value pairs which has been received from the map. So this is how it's going to look after shuffling the key value pairs which I received from my map stage, and all these values from the shuffle, after shuffle, it's going to be passed to my reduce stage. In my reduce stage, I'm going to receive all these values which I got from my shuffle as an input to my reduce. So let's say I'm going to pass this first record to my reduce. What I'm going to do is, in my reduce, I'm going to try to count the values. So in my current value, I just have 1. So where I'm going to write some kind of logic within my reduce stage, and I'm going to sum up all the array of values which I have in my value section. After summing up my values in this reduce stage, my output may look something like this, where I'm going to write one more key value pair, where I'm going to write the key as a rating again and the value as the sum of the values. So it's going to be 1 here. So in the same way, what happens for the second record, where the key is going to be 9 and the value is going to be 2, because I had 2 records. So I'm going to sum up those array of values where my value is going to look like 2 now. So in the same way, I'm going to perform the same thing for the third record. So where the key value pair will look like this. And this key value pairs can be fetched in my output or summarize, or this key value pairs can be used in order to do some other, like let's say you want to create some kind of text files, and that I'm going to perform later in my output stage. So let's say this is how my output summary or the final stage may look like, where I'm going to get like, okay, with rating of 10 I had around count of 1, with rating 9 I had around count of 2, with rating 8 I had around count of 1. So here I just use the same 4 records to do this. If I had around, like, let's say millions of records, so all these records would be running parallelly. Like for example, line kick will be running in one thread and another night would be running in another thread, and all these records would be running parallelly, and it's gonna perform all this operation as fast as possible. So this is how the MapReduce pattern works. So now let's take a sample example within our MapReduce script, and let's see how I can convert this kind of scenario into my script, and let's see the output after executing our MapReduce script within our NetSuite account. So here I have opened my Visual Studio Code. I'm gonna right click on my folder and I'm gonna click on this create SuiteScript file. I'm gonna select the MapReduce script type. I'm gonna make use of search module in this script type. So I'm gonna select the search module here. I'm going to provide some meaningful name for this MapReduce script. So here I have my basic syntax of my MapReduce script, which is in version 2.1, and I have been loading the search module here. And here we can see the different stages. Let me just scroll down to my return section. We can see all different stages which are available in our MapReduce script type, which is like getInputData, map, reduce, and summarize. And as I said before, the shuffle stage, we don't see the shuffle stage here because we don't have access to the shuffle stage in our script. So the grouping of those key value pairs from map and sorting them, shuffle stage is going to take care in the backend. So we just have access to get input, map, reduce, and summarize stages. So this is how the basic syntax of MapReduce script looks like. So now let's see how we're going to perform this similar kind of flow using our MapReduce script. So I have logged into my NetSuite account and I have a custom record called as movie ratings. So this is how the custom record configuration looks like. So if you would like to create your own custom record, you can just navigate to customization, records, and record types, and then just click on new. I have created the custom record type with 3 different fields, starting with movie name, another field called as rated by, and the final field called as rating. And these are the internal IDs of those fields. So I have configured or created my custom record called as movie ratings. Now I'm gonna add my one of the movie. I'm gonna navigate to top right of my browser and I'm gonna keep my mouse over on this more option, which provides me 2 options, view types and view records. I'm gonna click on view records, and from here I'm gonna click the button called as new movie ratings, and I click on that. It gives me an option to enter the movie name, rated by, rating, and all those things. So once I'm done, then I'm gonna click save, and if I want to create a fresh one, I'm gonna click save and new. So in this movie rating custom record, I have around 108 records so far. So here you can see all the movie names, rated by, and the ratings on the right hand side, and here you can see the internal ID of this particular record which I have created. So we're gonna make use of this records as an input to my MapReduce script. So in order to pass all this movie rating list data to my MapReduce script, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a search on this record. So I'm gonna click on this search. I'm not gonna add any kind of filter as of now. I'm gonna go to results section and remove the script ID, and I'm gonna pass movie name as one of my column. In the same way, I'm gonna pass the remaining columns like rated by and rating. I'm gonna click create save search, and I'm gonna name this as SuiteScripts movie rating search, and I'm gonna just click save and run. So once I click save and run, I can see the results here. Either I can use search.load API within my script to load the search and run, or I can use some of the plugin called as search export plugin, where I'm gonna make use of export as script option, and I'm gonna copy this code generated by this plugin and I'm gonna use it within my script. So I have completed the coding on my MapReduce script type. I'm going to start explaining this MapReduce script code, what I have done so far. So let's get into each and every stage. And as of now, we'll not discuss about what are the parameters options available in this getInputData input context. So in this getInputData, I'm going to use this search.create. I'm going to search on that custom record, and I have passed all the columns like movie name, rated by, and the rating. And if you clearly notice, once I create this search.create, I'm not going to run this search. I'm just going to return this search object as a return from my getInputData stage. So by default, NetSuite is going to run this save search for me in the backend and generate the results. And when it generates the results, so let's say I had around 108 results, right? So all this data which got generated from my getInputData stage is going to pass to my map stage. So here you can clearly see in the map stage, the description clearly says data collection containing key value pairs to process in the map stage. This parameter is provided automatically based on the results of the getInputData stage. So since this is going to run, the data which may look like is like kind of key value pairs, where the key is going to be the internal ID of my record and the value is going to be a JSON data of that particular record. So far in our get input data stage, we gather this kind of results. This is how we stand until get input data stage. In our map stage, we're gonna log this map context. Since we're gonna receive the key value pairs, I'm gonna log the key and the value which I receive from this map context. And I'm gonna pass this map context because this is an object here which I'm gonna receive, where I'm gonna get all the results of the value in the some kind of a JSON format. So I'm gonna pass this JSON using the JSON.parse. And finally, I'm gonna store the parsed data in my map context data variable. And from that variable, I'm gonna fetch all the values like movie name, rated by, rating, and I'm going to store it in all these variables. And finally, I'm going to log it using log.audit. And if you clearly notice, I'm writing the key value pairs here. So if you see the rating, which is going to be my key, and the value, I'm going to set a default value as 1. So within this map context, I have an option of API called as write API. And this write API I can't even see in this function definitions, right? And how did I arrive with this write API key? Let's go back to our NetSuite. So I have searched for SuiteScript 2.x script types in my help center, and I have the list of script types here. Here I have the list of script types, and here there is a section called as MapReduce script, which provides me the definition of this MapReduce script and all the stages available within this MapReduce script. I'm going to click on this map context. So from this map context, I'm going to click on the map context, and then within the map context, I can see all the methods and the properties available on this map context. So I'm going to make use of this map context.write method or the write API in order to write my own key value pairs. If I just open this map context.write, I can see this usually used to write the key value pairs to be passed to the shuffle and then to the Redue stage. So let's go back to our code. So I have used those write API, and the key I'm going to pass it as the rating, which for this movie, and the value I'm going to default it to 1. So this is going to be the output of this map stage, and this output is going to be an input to my shuffle stage. So as per the code, we passed each and every record to our map stage, and within our map stage we try to write our own key value pairs, where the key was the rating and the value we set to 1. And we're gonna do the same thing for all the records within our script. So all the key value pairs which you see in our map stage is currently an output of this map, which is gonna be an input to our shuffle stage. And as I said before, after this map stage, we just have access to Redue stage, but we don't have access to shuffle stage. So by default in the backend, the shuffle stage is gonna perform the group by operation on these keys and sort them out. So now all these outputs from our map is gonna pass to a shuffle stage, and the shuffle is going to group them based on the keys. For example, you can see the key here is 9, which is nothing but our rating, and the value you can see it here, and this has been grouped based on the key and has been sorted. The shuffled output is going to be passed to our reduce stage. So now let's look at after shuffle. Now it's going to reach the reduce, and here you can clearly see the definition of this reduce. Defines the function that is executed when the reduce entry point is triggered. This entry point is triggered automatically when the associated map stage is complete. This function is applied to the each group in the provided context. So our shuffle have already grouped based on the key value pairs from that map stage, and this function is going to apply on each and every group framed by the shuffle stage. So within my reduce, I have used the reduce context.key to see my output or the key, and also the values which has been grouped by shuffle. So once I am done with my logging with both the key and the values, I'm going to loop through my values, and I'm going to just sum up all the values which I receive. Let's say for example I received 1, 1, so as an array. So I'm going to sum up those values, and I'm going to frame the count for that particular unique key. And finally I'm going to perform the write operation using the same reduce context. Previously it was map context which I used. In the same way I can use the reduce context and its API called write, where I'm gonna write the key as rating and the value as count. So this reduce stage output can be fetched in our summarize stage. As per our code explanation, from the shuffle stage, this grouped key value base is going to be passed to my reduce, and this reduce is going to perform some kind of logical operations to count the values based on the rating, and write my own key value pairs within my Redue section. So now here my key is 8 and the values or the count is 1. In the same way for the next group, which is whose key is 9, whose values are 1 comma 1, and this has been summed up and the count is now 2 for this particular rating. So in the same way it goes for the third record, and this is the output which I get from my Redue stage, and this output or the key value pairs I can use it within my summarize section, where I can frame some kind of finalized output, something like this, within my summarize section. So the key value pairs written in our reduce context can be accessed within our summarize stage. So this summary stage has one of the argument called as summary context, where you can see multiple properties like date created, output, seconds, usage, yields, input summary, map summary, reduce summary. So here I have used the summary context dot output. So this will be a like kind of serialized key value pairs which was saved during our reduce stage. You can see the definition provided by NetSuite script itself. If I just scroll down, I have used the summarize.output, and using the output, I have an API called as iterator to loop through all the key value pairs. I'm not going to go in the detail of all this APIs, so I'm just going to loop through all this and I'm going to just frame some kind of content, let's say movie rating so and so, and the count is so and so for all the output which I received from my Redis context. Once I frame this movie rating data, I'm going to log it. So that we can see it in our execution log. And after that, I have just passed few input summary and reduce summary just to track if there are any errors occurred within my map summary or reduce summary. You can find all the statistics data related to your input summary, map summary, reduce summary. If there is any errors occurred within all these stages, or what seconds or how much time it has taken, or what is the unit which has been consumed on each and every stages, or in the summary stage you can gather all the data using all these methods and properties available within this summary context. So I'm going to upload this code to my NetSuite account. So I have successfully uploaded my script to my NetSuite account. I'm going to navigate to customization, scripting, scripts, and just click on new. I'm going to select my file which I just uploaded, and then I'm going to click create script record. I'm going to provide some meaningful name for this script and the ID for this MapReduce script. So I have provided the name as test MR script and the ID as test underscore MR. And you can clearly see all the stages has been recognized within the script record, which is get input data, map, reduce, and summarize. So I'm going to click save on this record, or I'm going to click save and deploy so that I can deploy the script. So I'm going to click save and deploy. So in this deployment page, I'm going to provide the ID as underscore test underscore MR. And on the right hand side, you can see the status, log level, execute as administrator, and the priority as standard high and low. I'm going to leave it as standard. And if you clearly notice, there is another field called as concurrency limit. As of now, it has been set to 1. I can see multiple options like 1 to 15. So let's leave it as 1 as of now. And I will explain you back what change it may give if I change the concurrency limit from 1 to something else, right? So I'm going to click save on this deployment. So in order to run the script deployment, I'm going to click edit, and then I'm going to click save and execute to run this manually or some kind of ad hoc basis. And if you clearly notice in the bottom section, you can see there is an option of scheduling this MapReduce also. If you see this schedule script which we found in our SuiteScript, where we were able to schedule our script and run it on as per our need. In the same way, you can also schedule this MapReduce script also. So as of now, I'm going to just run this MapReduce script manually. So I'm going to just click save and execute. So once I click save and execute, I can see this MapReduce script status. And right now my script is running. And the current stage which is being used is getInputData stage. And there is an option of details. So I'm going to click on the details just to show you some more details. So if I just open this detail section, you can see all the stages of this MapReduce script starting from getInputData till summarize, and even shuffle is being shown up here. And all the status shows as complete, which means it has completed the processing of each and every single stage. And it shows the start and end date of all the stages, when it started and when it ended. Now let's go back to our status page. I'm going to click refresh so that it will show us complete. Now I'm going to open the deployment by just clicking on this custom deploy. Now I'm going to just scroll down and click on execution log. So I'm going to refresh this page one more time so that I have some kind of plugin on this which is going to beautify all the data which I have here. So in this execution log, I'm just gonna concentrate on one of the log, which is string content, str content. If I just go back to my code in the summarize stage, on my final step on the summarize, I'm gonna summarize all the movie ratings by a variable called as str content, and I have logged it. So if I just go back to my execution log, I can see the str content. Since I have passed around 108 records, I can see all the lists of movie ratings. Let's say for example, movie rating with 10, I have a count of 1, and movie rating with 7, I have a count of 20. The same way with 8 rating, I have 45, and the rating with 9, I have around 42 records. So we saw the output here, and let's see all the logs. So I'm going to just go back and click on the first log on this execution log subtab. And if I just scroll down here, I can see my first log which says map context key as 1. And if I just go back to my code, within my getInputData stage, I don't have any logs, and I've just written the search object. NetSuite has run the search and written the search results to my map stage. In the map stage, I have logged map context key and the data. As I said before, key is going to be my internal ID. So let's go back, and the internal ID is 1. And the value respect to this particular internal ID 1 is this one, which I have the record type and the ID of this record and the values of this record, which is in JSON structure, where the key is the field ID and the value with respect to that particular field. So that is the reason I have used map context dot values dot movie name, or you can even use this bracket notation to access the JSON data. I can see the output which I have done here, the log.audit, which is so and so log. Here we see all the values like movie name, rated by user, and the rating. And in the same way, we can see all the keys like whose internal ID is 2. In the same way, we would be able to see multiple key and values of map context. We can see one of the key which is 120, and the value is Pulp Fiction. The rater is user 1, and the rating is 9. So in the same way, we would have got all the logs. Deep dive in some other logs. Let's try to find if there is any logs with respect to reduce context. So I'm going to just select random. Now here I can see my reduce context data. And if I just scroll down, I can see one of the key, the reduce context key is 9. Here in this case, as per our code, the reduce context key will be the rating. So reduce context key will be the rating. So the rating is 9, and the value respect to rating 9, right? This is the value, which is array of values. So in my code, I have looped through this array by using a for each API, and I have counted all the values, which is 1 plus 1 plus whatever it is, how many values it has in the array, and I got the count, and I have set it under the value of reduce context. So finally, my content within my summarize, as I said before, the log, which is str content, which has this value, which is like with rating 10, with a count of 1, with rating 7, I have a count of 20. And on this script deployment, we saw this concurrency limit. If you clearly remember in the beginning, I mentioned that parallel processing of this huge data, where I can run different records on a parallel and run the script as fast as possible to get my result, right? So here the concurrency limit has been set to 1. So if I set it to 1, it's going to run kind of sequentially, I would say. So, or maybe some kind of only one processor will be used within this MapReduce script to run all the records. So let's say I'm going to set it to 2. So there will be 2 different processor where it's going to run parallelly and run all this data as fast as possible. So I'm going to set the concurrency limit to 2, and I'm going to remove all the logs from this list, and I'm going to click OK. And let me just click save and execute now. So now you can see there is a script status which is currently running, and you can see the concurrency is 2 for this one. So I'm going to click details on this particular one where I've set the concurrency as 2. So if I just click on the details, now here you can see previously when I set the concurrency limit to 1, the data which I saw was something different. GetInputData was only 1, summarize is also only 1, map, shuffle, reduce all or 1. But in this stage when I set the concurrency limit to 2, I can see the map is twice and the reduce is also twice. So which means, which is going to split the data and run parallelly and complete as fast as possible. So you can see the shuffle is still 1, getInputData is still 1, summarize is 1, only reduce and map are 2 now. So now script has complete. Now let's go back to our status, I'm gonna click refresh. So if I just click on this particular one and I'm gonna click execution log, we can see the output with the same result. So by default in NetSuite, for a default common license, you will be having around 2 processors. But if you purchase with additional license, you may get multiple processors. So let's see what happens if I leave this empty and if I save this and execute this particular deployment with concurrency limit as empty. You can see it is considering all the processors which are available and it starts running the script. So let's refresh this, and in the meantime just click details just to see how it looks. So you can see, and why we have only 4 reduce jobs and 15 map jobs. So if you clearly notice on this map reduce script status, when I started with 1 concurrency limit, which means it would have run sequentially, it started at 12.104 seconds and it ended by 09. There is around like kind of 5 seconds difference. But when I set the concurrency limit to 2, you can see the seconds here which started at 12.8 and 20 seconds AM and it ended at 12.8.24. You can see that there is a decrease in seconds with 1 second. Now when I set the concurrency limit to empty, and this has considered all the processors available within the system, which is like around 15. This time it started at 12:10:06 AM, but it finished as soon as possible by 12:10:09 AM. So there's a very small difference, but if I would have done very huge logics within my code, let's say I am doing some kind of logics by transforming records and doing something else or creating some other records by using all this data, maybe it would have consumed some more time. Since it's a simple script, this is how we can see the difference within the seconds. So now coming back to the difference, which we saw like where we saw map with 15 jobs and reduce with 4. Now let's go back to our log of this deployment which we ran recently. And if I just click on the execution log, and the output, if you see on the str content, is we have around 4. This is the output got generated by our reduce context, which is an input to our reduce context as well. So let's take a simple example. Let's say I had around 108 records totally as an input to my map stage. So all this records would be passed to my map, which is around 108 records. So there were around 15 jobs. So similar to one map, you would have seen multiple maps. So similar to this map, there would be another map, the same way another map till goes like 15. So all this 15 processor has been considered because we had around more than 15 records, like around 108. So all this 108 records has been split between all this different processors, like 15 processors in the backend by this map reduce pattern itself. So we did not to do any kind of logics to do this parallel processing. So once I set the concurrency limit to 15, in the backend it has triggered 15 jobs and it has started pushing all this 108 records. Now with this 108 records, as you see in the output, it generated around 4 different ratings, like starting with 10, 8, 9 and 7, right? The unique key here is the rating. So unique key is rating. So 10, 8, 9 and 7. As I mentioned before, this shuffle has been grouped. This shuffle will group all the outputs received from the map stage with this key. Now we just have around 4 results, and this 4 results will be passed as an input to our reduce stage, as I mentioned before. So since only 4 data has been passed to our reduce stage, so now the reduce stage I just received 4 data and we set the processor as or the concurrency limit to 15. So only 4 processor is required now, not all or everything is required. So the 4 processor got in picture and it completed the processing of all the remaining 4 records which came by grouping within our reduce. So as I mentioned before, one of the options which we saw in script deployment of this map reduce script is we can schedule this, and also we can see this option of concurrency limit. But do we get the same option in schedule script? So here I have one of the schedule script, and let's try to deploy the schedule script. If I try to deploy this, I can just see an option of schedule, but I don't see an option of concurrency. So the schedule script cannot run parallelly, which means the schedule script is going to run sequentially. It will process one record at a time, and this is going to take a lot of time to process all the records. Let's say if you add more than 1 lakh, something like that. And let's say still you're going to proceed with the same schedule script and you start processing all those 1 lakh records within your schedule script. And if you would have watched one of my video where I used schedule script to check the governance usage limit, where I tested the schedule script with huge number of records. Let's say I used the more number of records, let's around 335 records, which add using some of the APIs like record.load and record.save. And at some point it failed and it threw me an error called as usage limit exceeded. And this is how the error looks when I executed that particular schedule script. When I try to process multiple records and I use record.load and API, and I faced usage limit exceeded issues over there. So, but when it comes to MapReduce script, it's a different case. The governance limit handled in MapReduce is completely different. So, in summary for MapReduce, we have around 4 different stage: get input data, map, reduce, and summary. And coming to usage units, there's map stage, reduce stage, and summary and get input data stage. So this get input data stage around 10,000 units as usage limit, and map has around 1,000 units, reduce has around 5,000, summary has around 10,000 units. And there is also time limits for each and every stage, which you can see in this table. And coming to usage units with respect to MapReduce, so these things work completely different. So they have different kind of limits like hard usage limit and soft usage limit. And there is a different numbers for those hard and soft usage unit limits. So we can discuss in detail or in advanced of this MapReduce script in our upcoming videos. So what is MapReduce script? So when the script executes, right, there is a structured framework which automatically creates required jobs to process the huge number of data. There is no need to manage from our end for this process. So NetSuite does it for us already. Okay. So which you would have seen like, so when I executed the script with a concurrency limit of 15, you saw automatically the system takes care of assigning the required processors to handle those huge volumes of data. Like let it be scheduling the number of jobs required for this data like map or the J reduce, then NetSuite takes care of it automatically in the backend.